Liam McNeeley's legend grows, and some bracketology. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. We appreciate your support. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering the UConn men's and women's basketball programs, the hoops capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. And to show our gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games of all kinds. I know some folks were at the hockey game when I was up there in store, so happy to send some kids to a diverse number of sports: basketball, hockey, baseball, the whole deal. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, let's talk about Liam McNeeley, and we're going to do a little film breakdown and really kind of dive into his impact on this team. I talked to Dan Meehan a couple days ago before we both picked UConn to beat Creighton, which is rare because it's the first time it's ever happened. And I said that this action is here, and he agreed and disagreed. And I'm not saying this to crap on Dan but I vehemently agreed that this action is there now that Liam is back. And I get it. Creighton is not St. John's, but you have to force the issue sometimes. And what we talked about on the live show is Alex Caravan, who did not shoot well, but he played a good game. He played a good floor game. He had some rebounds. He had some putbacks, some really timely shots, and he also hit the most clutch shot when they were tied with about 1:40 to go that we'll see later in the show here. Because when you have a guy like Liam who is so proficient and is so good at what he does, which is he can shoot the three, he can get by you with his physicality, he can put you on his hip when he gets you in those DHOs, and just kind of the normal two-man game where they're doing like a horn set and they have action behind it. All of that stuff is there. And I apologize if I don't know the exact call because I'm not privy to that. But what I do know is good basketball when I see it. So let's talk about it. And I'll pause it a few times and we'll kind of talk about how it all is helping this UConn team finally, I think, get some consistency with this offense, because the defense was damn good last night. And let's face it, over the last 3 weeks or so, as people have talked about, they've done a better job. Like Bart Torvak has them top 25 in defensive efficiency over the last, I think, 3 weeks. If they can hit those numbers, this team has an opportunity to win a national championship, because that's kind of the marker right there. Your top 10 offensively, your top 30, top 25-ish defensively. No one's won defensive efficiency outside of the top, I think, 50. And I know the whole body of work, I think they're 99 right now in Ken Palm, which is pretty wild. But if you take it in segments and what this team is now, they could buck those trends. Okay, let's get into this. There's no sound, so you're just going to hear my voiceover. So if you're listening to this on audio, I'm going to talk about some of these plays. So I apologize if this isn't as pleasing for you of a show, but when we get into the bracketology segment, which is mostly the last couple segments of the show, you will, I know you'll appreciate it, because we're going to talk about UConn, but the entire landscape of college basketball. And I will promise that I will, sorry for coughing, promise that I'll try to be as descriptive as possible when it comes to these clips. All right, so let's get this. This is the first shot of the night for Liam. I think it's the second possession of the game. Creighton hit a three. I think it was Jemiah Neal. So Alex gets a screen from Sampson, and he gets around the top of the key, and you see Jemiah Neal hedging down to kind of see if he can stop, which is stupid because they have Kalkbrenner right there. So really bad defensive read from Jemiah. Alex read, bang. So now it's tied, and Liam's off to the races. Now you have Hassan Diarra coming up the floor. He played very little, but this is all Liam in the team that rarely follows. I thought that was a good sign of things to come. Liam really set the tone, because the rest of the team just was not very settled offensively. This is still in the first half. It's 10-5 Marquette. Liam gets the ball around a couple of screens from Terrace and Alex. Alex 3-point shooting to kill them. But it actually kind of backfired because not only did Liam do it a bunch, Alex ended up doing it a bunch. And also the biggest shot of the game was Alex hitting a little in this game without Alex Karaban. Flash forward to the late run. This is when things get really crispy out there where Liam went nuts. So this right here is exactly what Dan Hurley wants. He said, I don't have a guy pre-Liam injury that is going to want this smoke. And the aura, the FU mentality of I'm going to come into your house and I'm going to take all of your things and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's the way Liam played that game. He was a Viking, a pillager. He just ran through the village and said, this is mine. You can't do anything. You can't stop me. And what are you going to do about it? That's the mentality that Dan wants for this team. And he's had it the last couple of years. And he just hasn't had it this year until now. So we get back into the action. He's going crazy. He's yelling at the crowd, getting fired up. Come on, where's your end? So just a little little lay-in, but my man 6'8", who cares? And this has been there all year. And this is a miss, but let's go back on this, okay? So this is a possession where you have Liam at the top of the key with Terrace, little screen here, and then freeze. So with a guy like Ryan Kalkbrenner, he is a very good defender. I don't think he's like, in the same category as Patrick Ewing and all those guys have won, but he's won 3 straight Big East Big East Defensive Player of the Year, and he's probably going to win his 4th, right? First person to ever do it in his 10th year in the league. But right here, this is where I think Liam was like, I'm going to try to get a foul, and that's fine. He took it right into his chest, and it actually freed up Terrace for an offensive rebound that he should have put back. But the point of this is this type of action with Liam is here the entire game. And now with the ability to have Solo and Jalen flared out for these essential, if any of these guys come down, Liam could kick it back out. But this was Liam being like, you know what? I am running the show tonight. Bought into the body. This is the play I want to talk about. Alex Karaban. As bad of a shooting night as he had, how clutch is Alex Karaban in this play? Get Liam at the top of the key. We won the game in the final seconds of it. I'm going to watch that again because I want to pause it. Look, this right here is perfect. Look at Jemiah Neal on Liam McNeeley. If you're listening to this on audio, Alex has it at the top of the key to the right on the wing. Sampson is screening his. I think it's Isaac Trout is the guy that's trying to cover Alex. So he's going to be able to get through this. But the spacing, if you're watching this on YouTube, between Liam and Alex is not great. But the fact that Jemiah Neal is like, Liam McNeely's not going to beat us. He's face guarding Liam McNeeley. So Liam could go backdoor, but we got Ryan Kalkbrenner here waiting and wait. This is where Alex is, and this is where Liam, his value is so great to this team because the spacing is there when you've hit a bunch of threes and you're dropping 38 points on someone. Let's finish this. So we get a ground there. Look, Jemiah Neal goes, oh, look, now UConn's in an advantage. Alex has number 23, I think, Trout on his hip, and now he can either attack Ryan Kalkbrenner, hit the little floater, which he can, and if Kalkbrenner comes up, then he can drop it down to Sampson, which he did later, and Sampson got it stripped for it went off his knee, and it went the other way. But the options are there. If Kalkbrenner isn't this tall, if he's not this good of a defender, the options for these lobs for Sampson and Terrace are there, but these floaters are there all game. That's pretty much the game, and UConn wins their first game in Omaha ever. Wanted to make sure you guys saw that and can see that that's where this offense is going. So I know we played Seton Hall, not exactly a big time game, but I want to see them work this offense more and more and more because it's okay to get good twos and then sprinkle in these threes, especially with someone like Alex who's been struggling from three. Keep shooting, dude. That's what made the drive, those drives to the basket. That's what made them even more satisfying is that you were 0 for 7 from 3 or whatever it was. I don't care. Go 0 for 10. Shoot the rock. Shooters shoot. You will shoot your way out of it. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about the entire bracket. Where is everybody? What does it look like now? This is my interpretation I don't do the in the mix. I don't do the should be in. There are teams that are in, and there are teams that are out, and there are teams that are on the bubble. And if you're a mid-major, I hope you win your tournament, because you're not sneaking in with as good as the SEC is, with as good as the Big Ten is, at least from a metrics perspective, with as good as the Big East is getting late in the season. We're not going to see a 2-bid SoCon. We're not going to see a 2-bid Missouri Valley. Mountain West, you had your shot last year. I don't think you're getting more than, I think we have 3 or 4. So we're going to get into that with my notes and talk about all of that. And also, I'll see you in Hartford in less than a week for the Villanova game after break. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss opening tip or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting, and because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. My wife and I did some of this on the Super Bowl and won some pretty big money. It was great. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your one shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. As we head down the final stretch of men's college basketball season, the NCAA tournament bubble is heating up. Teams are jockeying for position, with every win or loss having massive implications. After this week's action, we've got some major shakeups. So let's dive into where things stand. First off, Kansas State. Unbelievable. Just so hot right now. They weren't even on the radar last week, but after back-to-back top 25 home wins over Kansas and Arizona, they've stormed their way into the conversation like a lavender Kool-Aid man. But they aren't alone. Villanova's huge win over St. John's this week moves them into the bubble conversation, while UConn's road win at Creighton, our boys that we just talked about, not only locks them into the tournament, but likely bumps their seeding up from the 8-9 range to something closer to a 6 or a 7. And that could be on the rise. So we don't do the platitudes where it's like, this team could be in, not, you're either in the field, you're on the bubble. All right. So we're going to break it down per conference. In the ACC, we're going by order. So I'm not going the Big East first. I'm going to go ACC first. Duke, a lock for the tournament and a potential top 4 seed. Clemson and Louisville are both securely in right now. Louisville still has to avoid bad losses down the stretch. Same with Clemson, although the win against Duke pretty much automatically will get them in. Even if they falter down the stretch, they could end up being like one of those 11 seeds that isn't a playing game. My buddy Steve Forbes at Wake Forest could have joined them, but blew a 16-point lead at home to Florida State, and that's cost them that chance for now. They definitely have more quality opportunities down the stretch. I believe they played Duke one more time in Cameron. So again, the gift and the curse of playing Duke right now, which is a very good team, a young team. I know Cooper Flagg's been dealing with like some sickness or something like that. John Shire's been talking about it. It's kind of a golden ticket. And if you're on the bubble and you get that big quad 1 win against, Duke, the name brand like Clemson did, that's why Clemson's in. Louisville's been pretty solid all year, especially with some guys that are injured. So right now, 3 teams. I think the most that the ACC will get is 4. With maybe Wake Forest. North Carolina's not in. They're on the bubble. Sorry. If you're a Tar Heels fan, they have done nothing all year to show you that they're an NCAA tournament. At least Wake Forest was competitive with Duke at home. I know they haven't played them on the road, but it looked like they're competent enough to be a 10 seed or something like that, right? All right, let's get to the Big 12. Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, Arizona, Baylor, Texas Tech, all firmly in. Kansas State, after the recent surge, is now solidly in the field. They'll need to maintain this momentum for now. They're dancing. The Big East, Marquette, St. John's, Creighton, and UConn, all safely in. UConn's win over Creighton not only secures their spot, but it improves their seed significantly. We talked about this when Dan and I were doing some shows the last couple weeks, that if they started to lose some of these really, good quad 1 opportunities, that there could be some teetering, that you could find yourself squarely on the bubble. the St. John's game isn't a bad loss. It sucks because it was at home. It sucks because I was there, but it wasn't a bad loss. You're winning the game for the first 10, 12 minutes of the game. St. John's implores that press, kind of takes your legs out from you. Liam's first game back, he showed the moxie that he is going to need going forward because this team needs him to be an alpha, and he is. And he proved that against Creighton. They get that. I don't think the loss to UConn is bad for Creighton as well. It's still a name brand. I know UConn isn't the metrics darling that, like, say, Gonzaga is, but they also beat Gonzaga. So it's not a bad loss for Creighton. It sucks for their fans who are in Dollar Beer Night, and it sucks that they got admonished by Dan Hurley on his way out. Can you imagine a guy being as bald as Dan Hurley, like myself, and saying 2 rings, Baldy, and then leaving and going, rah? Like, that to me is someone that is so unapologetically himself that it cracked me the hell up. That's the funniest thing I think I've ever seen him say to a fan. And it's also kind of like, I'm a parent. I don't want your kids to say mean things to other kids. We all know that. But that's just some schoolyard stuff, man. Like, that's him going all the way back to Jersey and just being like, yeah, take this, like whatever, like all the stupid things we used to say to each other on the basketball court, whether you played in Connecticut or New Jersey or New York. And that's just what it reminded me of. 2 rings, Baldy. Anyway, Big Ten, Illinois, Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin, Maryland, Oregon, UCLA, all safely in. That's all I got to say. The Big Ten is solid. I think Indiana is knocking on the door a little bit with some better play lately, but I just can't imagine they're going to – they had so many opportunities to be a really good NCAA tournament team this year, and they just haven't done it. UCLA is proving Mick Cronin right. Sorry, Mal. I know you hate him, and I know that I'm not a big fan of Mick Cronin because I think he's kind of a pansy, but it has a little man syndrome. But I think the biggest issue that he's had is travel, right? They're like 17-0 on the West Coast. They're 0-5 on the East Coast. I think they're like 2-1 in Central Time. So proof's in the pudding, right? That's the thing that sucks about these super conferences when you have all of this travel that's spread out. But it also says something about his team, right? That maybe when they go to that colder climate, they got to be tougher. I don't know what to tell you. Listen, travel is as easy as it's ever been. It's not like he's on the Oregon Trail. Your point guard has dysentery. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is, man. It's usually a pretty big 747. You're UCLA. You could also probably charter a private jet like Wake Forest did from Stanford because one of their alumni had a private jet. You got a lot of superstars out at UCLA. Why don't you ask the Lakers if you can borrow their jet? It'd be all right. SEC, the darlings of college basketball right now: Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Missouri. No question here. They are all in. Now, other notable conferences: Gonzaga of the WCC and St. Mary's also in. Memphis, New Mexico in. Utah State in. Each of these teams has done enough right now to punch their ticket. But when we return, we're going to talk about the bubble and some of these mid-major teams who are hopefully they're ready to play in their conference tournament, because if there was ever a year where they're not going to give love to mid-majors, it is this year. It is the year of the power conference, and that also means the Big East isn't a power conference. It's the year of power 3 or 4, whatever you want to call it. Most likely 3, because the ACC is trash as well. All right, when we come back, let's talk about the rest of bracketology, and then I'll see you in Hartford. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. Quick little turnaround. All right, these are the teams on the bubble. We're going to go by conference. North Carolina, kind of mentioned them already. They're currently not an NCAA tournament team. I don't see how you can look at this NCAA tournament team with what Hubert has put on the table and say, oh, man, North Carolina, they just need to get another shot. They just need to get more opportunities to, get more quad 1 opportunities. I mean, they're 50th in the net. If everyone's if people are going to tell me that Villanova is not on the bubble, but North Carolina is, I mean, North Carolina's 1 in 10 again. They've had 11 opportunities in quad 1 games because they played a tough non-conference schedule. They're 5-0 in quad 2. They're 3-1 in quad 3, 5-0 in quad 4. That's not a great resume. It's not. They're 3-6 on the road, 2-3 on neutral sites. Sorry, that's just. I'm sorry, Tar Heel Nation. That's just not a good team. They'll have a massive opportunity against Duke on the road. I don't think that's going to happen for them, or at home actually. And a win there would all but guarantee kind of like one of those last 4 in deals, because Duke, like I said, they're kind of the golden ticket. That Villanova win against St. John's is kind of similar, but not really, because St. John's has a really good resume, but they don't have the cachet that Duke does. Same thing here with ACC bubble teams: Pitt, SMU, Wake Forest. Pitt and SMU destroyed Pitt at home. That should be a closer game. If Pitt is an NCAA tournament team, you can't lose by 20-something points in Dallas. You just can't. And then Wake Forest, we talked about the loss against Florida State. Really stings. But they can claw their way out of that. They have a better resume. Let's see where they are in the net. I think they're in the 40s. I don't know. Maybe they don't. No, they're not. They're 67 in the net. Good Lord, they lost 7 spots. That's a tough blow right there. I think that's kind of why you're seeing what it is. All right, let's go to the Big East or Big 12. BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, West Virginia, TCU, all are fighting for limited spots. BYU's upcoming game against Kansas State and Kansas are crucial. Cincinnati just beat BYU. They're on a bit of a run here. I know this. I know the metrics love Cincinnati. My buddy Wes out there has done a nice job of kind of getting them back into the mix. They're still 1-7 in quad 1 games, 6-2 in quad 2. He's got to win better quad 1 games. That's my guy. I love him. He's a friend. I'm always rooting for him. But that Cincinnati team has a really difficult time scoring. And when you play some of these teams that have guys who can get their own shot and some really good offenses, having the best athletes and having really good shot blockers and rebounders is great. And all coaches love that. I love that. But you got to put the ball in the hole. And it's just, they're 46 in the net. Not a great resume, 4-5 on the road. So it's going to be tight for them. I think they're they're on the bubble. So we'll see what happens. Same thing, Big 12, West Virginia, big win. Are the wins against Kansas that great though? Like, I think Kansas is in, obviously. Kansas is a media darling. Is kind of a metrics anomaly for me. They're 5-6 in quad 1 games, which means, they're an average team. They beat teams. So sometimes they lose sometimes. Like, for example, if we look at our boys, right? UConn is 5-4 in quad 1 games, and they also haven't had the same amount of opportunities because the Big East is down. If you put UConn in the Big 12, I would love to see, them have 15 opportunities at quad 1 games and see how that shakes out, because there's something about big games in UConn that typically turn out good for us, right? Big East bubble teams: Xavier, Villanova, Georgetown. I think Georgetown's like on the fringes of the bubble. Villanova definitely inserted themselves squarely on the bubble, and Xavier is as well. Looking at some of the metrics here, let's see. We got Xavier at 54, Villanova at 52. I think Georgetown's going to be somewhere in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. 85. Georgetown's not out of the bubble. I'm going to take them off. That's terrible. If Georgetown wins, Georgetown better win the Big East tournament. Let's put it that way. All right. Now on to the Big Ten. Indiana, Nebraska, Ohio State, USC, in Iowa. Those are all somewhat bubble teams. Iowa is 60th. I think Indiana is right around that same area. Yep, 57. Who else we got? Nebraska, Ohio State. I like Nebraska. I've seen them play a bunch this year. And I don't dislike their team. I think they're really talented. I don't know. I think for me, 47, they're 5-6 in quad 1 games. Yeah, I mean, that's like a 50-50. I could see Nebraska being in, no doubt. And Ohio State, God, what's the gentleman's name who took over at Ohio State? I thought he's had a great year so far in his first year. Diebler, I think his name is. But yeah, I think Ohio State's got an opportunity to get in. And, Indiana, the win at Michigan, the Michigan State helps, but they need more. Nebraska is trending up, but they need to avoid another loss in a losing streak like they had in January. So on to the SEC: Arkansas, Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas, Vanderbilt. Arkansas is going to make the NCAA tournament. And how funny would it be if Arkansas went further than Kentucky this year? I think that is going to be my favorite storyline of the NCAA tournament. And then there's some other conferences, right? Okay, Drake is riding their second 11-game winning streak this season. They have key non-conference wins over power conference teams, but they have a puncher's chance. Don't if you're a Drake fan or you just like them from having some guys that you've watched, win games in the NCAA tournament, win the Missouri Valley. Don't mess around. George Mason, same thing, A10. They're showing grit, but they have terrible metrics. They need to win the A10 tournament to feel safe. San Diego State is another one that's an interesting one because they have the cachet of making the final a couple years back, losing to UConn, and then making it back again to the second round and losing to UConn again the following year. But they have shaky metrics. They have a huge win over Houston early, but sometimes those early wins kind of don't mean as much as the late ones do. They look at body of work, but you know what I mean. Some of those early wins kind of get lost in the shuffle. It's be like, oh well, team coming off, they're trying to figure themselves out, blah blah blah. This team is interesting. My buddy Kyle Bankhead is on their staff. San Francisco, the Dons are very well coached. They should have beat Memphis before the Maui Invitational. I watched that game to kind of scout Memphis, and that's the reason why I thought Memphis was not going to be able to handle UConn, because San Francisco was handling them, and they just had a really bad second half. They have no quad one wins. They beat Gonzaga. Beating Gonzaga in the WCC tournament could be their golden ticket, or St. Mary's, because I think St. Mary's and Gonzaga will likely both be in, but San Francisco, if they can snag a WCC tournament title, they could be a bid stealer. So be on the lookout for that. VCU, despite a solid record, is still searching for their first quad one win. A10 tournament is very critical if they're going to kind of sneak in as another A10 at-large team. These other ones are kind of the shots in the dark. UC Irvine, UC San Diego. They don't have any big wins. They have a pair of quad 3 losses for UC Irvine. They're out. If they can win their tournament, obviously they get in. Same with UC San Diego. Each of these teams face kind of the daunting reality that I witnessed in real life when you're covering mid-majors, that you better win your conference tournament. And it's a different type of pressure than any coach that hasn't played in a mid-major would tell you. Anything less, and you're at the mercy of the committee, which you do not want to be on. Let me know if if you guys think differently, but I have too many examples of mid-majors having a better resume, but then they go, well, who do they play? What would it's the same old stuff that you hear in football. It's like, well, if you put that team in the SEC, could they beat them? Blah, blah, blah. So, it's the NCAA tournament. It's not football. So, I hate seeing, and I'm going to just use 2 random names on the board here. I hate seeing West Virginia, who's 15-9 in the Big 12, be ahead of a 20-3 or 19-6 Bradley because they play in the MAC or the WVC. Those are the ones that kind of piss you off. Like Drake is 56. They're 21-2 in the Mountain Valley. They have what are they? 2-0 in quad 1, which is a fantastic resume for a mid-major. But they have a quad 3 loss. They have a quad 2 loss. Does that get them enough? Santa Clara is 17-10 in the WCC. They have a better resume than Drake, but do they really? So these are the questions that the committee asks, and I think I would much rather see a team like Drake than a team like Pittsburgh. Sorry. All right. North Carolina need to beat Duke or you're out. Kansas State's turnaround is remarkable. UConn officially back on the radar as a sleeper. 6 seed is likely right now, but I think they can trend all the way up to a 4 seed if they get hot. And I just hope my buddies at Wake Forest can get it together, because I wouldn't mind seeing them sneak in, even if they dropped, Clemson or Wake Forest from a 3 or 4 bid ACC. All right. That's the show today. Really appreciate you guys jumping on and doing a little Liam Legend and then a little bracketology for your Thursday morning. We'll see you tomorrow. And this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure those toughness meters are always rising. And as always, go Huskies.
Go Huskies.